The ugliest team, the most predictable team, though, the 2023 Titans. Not something that anybody is probably overly enthused or really, really wants to dive into. But hey, we're at the AFC South, and there is at least one monster that you all know of from this Titans team. So let's pull up here the Tennessee Titans. I will talk about how I think their fantasy season goes and who to care about beyond Derrick Henry. Not much. Spoiler. So I do project similar to their history under Mike Vrabel, under Derrick Henry, really. They have been a more run-heavy than pass-heavy team in all but one of the last 6 seasons. And I think that will absolutely continue this season. Over 500 rush attempts in 3 straight, 554, 569, and 501 in their 3 last seasons. So I definitely think another 500 plus attempts, assuming Henry holds up, is well in line with the expectations. I think minus 66 of the league average is also very fair. Minus 83 plays last year, minus 91 4 years ago, minus 42. They were a pretty up-tempo team just 2 seasons ago, but I don't think we get back there. This is just an ugly overall. Let's grind out games, ride Derrick Henry, and see what happens. So big ground pie. So even with just 65% of it, which Henry's been a 75+% guy in all but one of the last 5 seasons, I think it drops down a little bit to 65% because they draft Tyjae Spears. All the talk so far has been they're going to feed Tyjae Spears as much as they can handle. He's the most impressive player in early OTAs, both as a pass catcher and a running back. I'll believe that when I see it. 100 carries behind Derrick Henry would be the most in a long time, and I think Spears is that big of a talent. I love the kid. Slippery, despite his small stature and small school status, was the most impressive player during the pro game, whatever the hell they call that game, the college Senior Bowl. Slipped my mind there for a second, but he won the award as the most impressive player among everybody there. He scored 4 touchdowns, 219 yards from scrimmage on 18 touches against USC, their best competition they faced all year. He thrived. So I really like Tyjae Spears. I think he's a great heir apparent, even at just 5'9". Not the biggest guy, but so damn slippery. Averaging 21, he had 21 touchdowns last year, tied for the most in the NFL. So he can score despite his smaller status as well. Very powerful and slippery in that sense. So I like Tyjae Spears a lot. All that to say, though, Derrick Henry clearly still projecting a monster season. 332, 1494, 13 touchdowns. He's always averaged around 4% or higher rushing touchdown percentage. He has not been under 4.5 yards per carry in a long time as well. So I think just keeping that, even with an offense that I expect. Well, I don't even think we bother talking about Tannehill and Levis, honestly. You're not drafting either of them. I don't think, unless Levis took over right from the start, and he is mobile. Both these guys are mobile. That's why I also had the QBs combining for, I believe, 12%. Yeah, 12% of the carries. That's been about what Tannehill has seen. They call his number a decent amount. The stripe, I think they'll do the same with Will Levis. But as you can see, I split this up between 2 of them. And even if you combined it, 22 touchdowns and 3,500-ish yards, nothing all that special. The rushing touchdowns would maybe buoy one of them if they were the starter all year. But even then, it's not much. You're really only worried about Derrick Henry. So back to the featured attraction. He did set a career high with 2.6 targets per game last year. But I do think Tyjae Spears walks right into a big target share. Let me just kind of look at what I expect this target share to be. So 11% going to Tyjae Spears. That would be the most a running back's ever seen under the Vrabel era. But I really think in the early OTAs, they've been splitting them out wide, moving them around, and there's really no one else here other than Treylon Burks, a whopping 27% target share. Now, that doesn't end up being much because of how low I expect this pie to be. In fact, I believe I had Calvin Ridley at like 19% target share, seeing more total targets because I just think that pie for the Jags will be that much bigger. But still, Treylon Burks, all the early reports are, 1, just in better shape, not having the asthma attacks throughout camp. Hey, that's good. But also, 2, that he's been the first read that him and Tannehill are getting out there early and often before practice. And then in practice, it's the first and really only guy Tannehill's been looking for. And who can blame him when you got Nick Westbrook-Akini, Kyle Phillips. And I do actually kind of like Chris Moore coming over from the Texans. He seems to produce every time he's put in there. But overall, big fan of Treylon Burks. I see nothing really in his way of 128 targets. And he was labeled the bigger Deebo Samuel coming into the league. And we saw glimpses of that. Some really nice flashes down the stretch as he finally had his conditioning under him. So assuming he hits the ground running, He's one of those really intriguing picks. Goes around Gabe Davis and Jahan Dotson. And I think one of those three guys is really going to light it up this year. Good luck figuring out who it is, but I clearly project Burks to be the most stable volume-wise of those guys, just in a much more hideous offense than the Bills there. Right after him, in terms of total targets, I do have Chig Okonkwo, who, if you look at any efficiency metric, yards per route run, targets per route run, we go down the list. Ian Harris had a great tweet about it. Chig was first or second in pretty much every efficiency metric, so he deserves to see a huge volume bump from his rookie year. I am projecting him, over double the targets he saw last year, and there might be even room for more there if Kyle Phillips and Keeney are that useless. Maybe he does get up to, right now I have him at 17% target share. He could be one of the few tight ends that does actually climb in that 20% range, given his efficiency of years past. So 716, 5 touchdowns, nothing to sneeze at. He is currently going ahead of Dalton Schultz, and I do like Schultz, as we talked about more, 770, 7 touchdowns on more catches, on more volume. So I do prefer Schultz at the same price range. But both these guys, intriguing tight ends. If you wait on the position there in round 12 and 13, maybe you pair them both up and see how that plays out for you. The more athletic, more intriguing potential is Chig, but Schultz, I just think, brings a little bit more stability and safety to the position. But that's how I project this team. Again, overall, it's Derrick Henry and not much else, but I love Tyjae Spears as that handcuff with benefits late. I think he does definitely have an intriguing receiving role with some change of pace work behind Henry. And then if the tragedy does strike, I didn't even mention that Derrick Henry, he's 29. That is where the cliff is definitely most apparent for running backs, 29 into 30, and 30 and beyond, certainly a graveyard for the running back position. So if anyone's going to buck that trend, it is the king, and clearly I expect him to. Falling in late round 2 and early underdog, one of my highest owned players. I love him. But if he does falter, a lot of these drafts, you typically don't handcuff an underdog in these best ball drafts. I have been sneaking Tyjae Spears going around 170 right now as again, that last couple rounds, handcuff with benefits. If tragedy strikes, I don't think Haskins brings anything to the table. I think they just turn it over to Tyjae Spears, who does have some very big knee concerns. Apparently, he doesn't even have an ACL in one of his knees. I don't know what that means. I don't know how you don't have an ACL and live and never mind play football. I actually have a torn ACL myself, and I could get by fine. I'm also not on the NFL field, so I have no idea what that means. But there's definitely a long-term risk to Tyjae Spears with that knee concerns, but they're going to apparently ride him while they have him. So I like this kid a lot. Outside the running backs, it's really just Treylon Burks and Chig, though, for the passing game. But that's not, even though it's low volume, if it's that heavily concentrated on only a couple months, it can really still pan out to some decent fantasy production. So what is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.